The explosions began before sunrise. Across the Iranian capital of Tehran, residents reported a chain of powerful blasts echoing through the city. Government districts shook, windows shattered, sirens filled the early morning darkness. This was not a single strike. It was another wave. 17 days into the expanding United States and Israeli war against Iran, Israeli aircraft launched a new round of precision attacks on government infrastructure deep inside the Iranian capital. The strikes targeted command facilities, security institutions, and military coordination centers tied to the Iranian state. And according to Israeli military assessments, the campaign is far from over. Officials say thousands of additional targets remain. But the most surprising part of this operation is not the number of strikes. It is where they are happening. For decades, the idea of sustained air attacks inside the heart of Tehran seemed almost impossible. Iran built layered air defenses, underground missile bases, and hardened command networks specifically to prevent this scenario. Yet Israeli aircraft are now striking infrastructure in the Iranian capital repeatedly. So how did this happen? How did Israeli forces reach the center of one of the most heavily defended countries in the Middle East? And what exactly are they trying to destroy? To understand the scale of the current escalation, we need to step back to the beginning of the campaign. The war formally entered a new phase on February 28th, when Israel launched a coordinated strike operation widely referred to as Operation Lion Roar. The objective was not simply retaliation, it was systematic degradation. The primary targets were three pillars of Iranian military power: ballistic missile launch infrastructure, air defense networks, and the command and control systems that coordinate the entire military structure. In the opening phase of the campaign, Israeli and United States forces concentrated on suppressing Iranian radar stations and surface-to-air missile batteries. The goal was simple: create air superiority. Once those defenses were weakened, Israeli aircraft could operate deeper inside Iranian airspace with far less risk. The results were dramatic. Israeli officials now claim that roughly 70% of Iranian ballistic missile launchers have been destroyed or rendered inoperable during the first weeks of the war. Before the conflict, Iran was believed to possess hundreds of mobile launchers capable of firing short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles across the region. Many of those systems were hidden inside tunnels, hardened bunkers, and underground launch facilities. But once air defenses weakened, those launchers became targets. Israeli aircraft, drones, and long-range precision weapons began hunting them across Iran. Satellite imagery and battlefield assessments suggest that dozens of missile complexes, storage bunkers, and launch platforms have already been hit. That matters because in modern missile warfare, the launcher is often more important than the missile itself. Without a functioning launch vehicle, even a large stockpile of missiles becomes useless. And this appears to be exactly what the Israeli strategy is targeting. Iran may still possess significant numbers of missiles, but its ability to launch them in large coordinated barrages is rapidly shrinking. As launchers disappear, the size of missile attacks becomes smaller, more sporadic, more desperate. However, destroying missile launchers is only part of the strategy. The latest wave of strikes inside Tehran reveals a second objective: command disruption. Military analysts believe the Israeli air campaign is now targeting the nerve centers of the Iranian system: command headquarters, government coordination facilities, security institutions tied to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. These sites are not simply buildings. They are nodes in a national military network. They coordinate missile launches, direct drone operations, transmit orders to regional proxy forces, and control elements of the Iranian security apparatus. If those nodes are damaged or destroyed, the Iranian response becomes slower and more chaotic. Orders take longer to transmit, coordination breaks down, and retaliation becomes harder to organize. That is why the recent strikes inside Tehran matter. They are not just symbolic attacks against government buildings. They are part of a deliberate attempt to dismantle the decision-making architecture behind Iran military operations. But even with these strikes, Iran still retains significant capabilities. Ballistic missiles remain, drone forces are still active, and regional allies and proxy groups remain capable of launching attacks across the Middle East, which means the conflict is far from over. In fact, the next phase of the campaign may be even more dangerous, because the deeper Israeli aircraft push into Iran, the higher the stakes become. And the technology enabling these deep strikes is a story of its own. The aircraft, the weapons, and the tactics that allow modern air forces to penetrate defended airspace and strike targets hundreds of miles inside hostile territory. That technology is what makes these operations possible, and it explains why Tehran is now within reach. The explosions in Tehran did not come from a single weapon. They came from a coordinated strike package designed for one purpose: penetration. To reach the Iranian capital, Israeli aircraft must travel hundreds of miles through some of the most contested airspace in the Middle East. Radar networks, surface-to-air missiles, and interceptor aircraft are all designed to stop exactly this kind of attack. Yet Israeli jets are reaching Tehran repeatedly. The reason is a combination of stealth technology, precision weapons, and carefully planned suppression of enemy air defenses. At the center of this capability is the Israeli Air Force fleet of advanced strike aircraft. One of the most important platforms is the F-35I Adir. This aircraft is designed specifically for deep penetration missions. Unlike conventional fighters, the aircraft's shape and coating are built to reduce radar detection. Radar waves scatter around the aircraft rather than reflecting directly back to the radar receiver. The result is dramatically reduced visibility on enemy radar screens. For air defense operators, a stealth aircraft can appear smaller, weaker, or sometimes disappear entirely within radar noise. That advantage allows aircraft to approach defended targets before defenders fully understand what is happening. Speed also plays a role. The aircraft can reach speeds of roughly Mach 1.6. That is more than 1,200 miles per hour. But speed alone is not what makes the aircraft dangerous. It is the sensors. The aircraft carries a powerful radar and advanced targeting systems capable of detecting enemy radars, missile launchers, and command facilities at long distances. These sensors allow pilots to build a digital map of the battlefield in real time. Once targets are identified, the aircraft can release precision-guided munitions designed to strike with extreme accuracy. These weapons include satellite-guided bombs and standoff missiles. One example is the class of 2,000-pound GPS-guided bombs known as JDAM weapons, which use satellite guidance to strike within a few meters of the intended target. When dropped from high altitude, these weapons can penetrate reinforced structures such as bunkers or command facilities. But stealth aircraft are only one piece of the strike package. Israel also deploys heavy strike fighters designed to carry large weapon loads over long distances. Among them is the F-15I Ram. Unlike stealth aircraft, this fighter is built for payload. It can carry large numbers of precision bombs, cruise missiles, and electronic warfare systems. During a major operation, stealth aircraft often move first. Their job is to locate and destroy radar installations and air defense launchers. Once those systems are degraded, heavier aircraft follow with larger bomb loads. This layered approach allows strike waves to hit multiple targets across a large area almost simultaneously. In the opening phase of the campaign, Israeli forces reportedly launched one of the largest air operations in the country history. Around 200 aircraft participated in coordinated strikes against Iranian missile sites, radar stations, and command centers across multiple cities. The objective was simple: break the defensive shield. Iran relies on a layered air defense network that includes long-range systems like S-300 air defense system and domestically produced systems such as Khordad-15 air defense system. These systems can detect aircraft at distances of more than 100 kilometers and launch interceptor missiles designed to destroy them in flight. In theory, this network should make deep airstrikes extremely dangerous, but modern air warfare rarely depends on brute force alone. Electronic warfare, cyber disruption, stealth penetration, precision strikes. All of these elements are used together. Israeli aircraft target radar systems first. Once radar coverage collapses, missile batteries lose the ability to track targets effectively. Without radar guidance, even advanced missile systems struggle to engage fast-moving aircraft. According to Israeli military statements, hundreds of Iranian radar installations and anti-aircraft systems have already been destroyed during the campaign. That collapse in radar coverage is what opens the door for deeper strikes. It is also why the latest attacks reach the Iranian capital. When the air defense network weakens, aircraft can push farther inside the country. And that is exactly what appears to be happening now. The Israeli Air Force is not only targeting missile launchers and radar sites, it is systematically dismantling the infrastructure that coordinates the Iranian military itself. Command headquarters, communication centers, security institutions. These are the systems that direct missile forces, drone units, and regional proxy networks. Destroying them does not only damage equipment, it disrupts decision-making. Messages fail to reach frontline units, orders arrive too late, and coordinated retaliation becomes far more difficult. This is why Israeli officials claim that roughly 70% of Iranian missile launchers are already out of operation during the campaign. Without launchers and command coordination, even a large missile arsenal becomes far less effective. But this technological advantage does not mean the war is close to ending. Iran still retains missiles. Drone forces remain active, and retaliation across the Middle East is already expanding, which raises a much bigger question. What happens if this escalation continues? Because the deeper these strikes go, the greater the risk that this conflict spreads far beyond Iran and Israel, and the consequences of that escalation could reshape the entire region. 17 days into the war, the battlefield is no longer limited to a single country. The explosions in Tehran are only one part of a much larger strategic contest unfolding across the Middle East. Israeli airstrikes have damaged missile launchers, command facilities, and government infrastructure deep inside Iran. Military officials say roughly 70% of Iranian missile launch platforms may already be destroyed or disabled. But in modern warfare, destruction of equipment does not automatically end a conflict. In many cases, it expands it. Iran still possesses significant military capabilities, The country maintains a large arsenal of short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles. Many are stored in underground tunnels, designed to protect them from air attacks. Even if launcher numbers are reduced, mobile systems can still fire missiles across the region. And Iran has another tool that does not rely entirely on domestic launch sites, regional partners, and allied armed groups. For years, Iran has built a network of allied forces across the Middle East. These groups operate in countries such as Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. Many possess rockets, drones, and missile systems capable of targeting military bases, shipping routes, and energy infrastructure. If the war continues to escalate, those networks could open additional fronts, and that changes the entire strategic picture. Instead of one air campaign over Iran, the conflict could expand into a regional confrontation stretching across multiple countries. That possibility is one of the biggest concerns for military analysts. Because the Middle East is home to some of the most important energy routes on the planet. One of them is the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow passage connects the Persian Gulf to global shipping lanes. Roughly 1/5 of the world oil supply moves through this corridor. If military activity disrupts shipping here, the impact would not remain local. Energy markets across the world would react immediately. Insurance costs for oil tankers would rise. Shipping companies might reroute vessels. Fuel prices in Europe, Asia, and North America could spike within days. And the longer the disruption continues, the greater the economic shock becomes. This is why the conflict is being closely watched far beyond the region. Another concern involves escalation between major powers. The United States already maintains military bases across the Middle East. Facilities in Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait support naval forces, air operations, and missile defense systems. If those installations become targets, the war could draw in additional American forces. That would dramatically increase the scale of the conflict. And history shows how quickly such escalations can unfold. Air campaigns designed to degrade military infrastructure sometimes achieve tactical success, but create new strategic risks. Destroying missile launchers may reduce immediate threats. But striking government infrastructure inside a national capital carries political consequences. Leaders facing domestic pressure may feel compelled to respond, even if the military balance favors their opponent. Iran leadership still retains tools for retaliation. Ballistic missile strikes, drone swarms, cyber operations, attacks on regional military bases, or disruption of shipping in the Persian Gulf. Each option carries different risks, but all of them could expand the war. There is also the question of time. Air campaigns often produce rapid early successes. Radar stations are destroyed, missile batteries are disabled, command facilities are hit. But the deeper a campaign goes, the more difficult the remaining targets become. Many critical facilities are buried underground. Others are hidden inside dense urban areas. And mobile missile launchers can relocate frequently, making them harder to find. This means the next phase of the war may involve longer operations and more uncertainty. Strikes may continue, retaliation may grow, and diplomatic pressure may increase as governments attempt to prevent a wider regional war. For now, the Israeli strategy appears focused on dismantling the core infrastructure that enables Iran to launch large-scale missile attacks. Missile launchers, radar networks, command centers, communication hubs. The logic behind this approach is clear. If those systems collapse, Iran's ability to coordinate large-scale strikes becomes weaker. But war rarely follows a predictable path. The destruction of infrastructure does not always produce immediate political outcomes. Sometimes it pushes conflicts into new and unpredictable phases. And that is why military planners around the world are watching these events closely. Because the air campaign over Iran is not just about one country or one war. It is a demonstration of how modern air power, stealth technology, precision weapons, and electronic warfare can reshape the battlefield. Deep strike operations that once seemed impossible are now becoming reality. Capital cities are no longer beyond reach. Command networks can be targeted hundreds of miles from the front lines. And entire missile arsenals can be neutralized not by destroying the missiles themselves, but by eliminating the systems that launch them. That is the strategic lesson unfolding over Tehran right now. Modern warfare is no longer only about armies on a battlefield. It is about who controls the air, who controls information, and who can dismantle the command structure of the opponent faster than it can respond. And that is exactly why conflicts like this are forcing militaries around the world to rethink how future wars will be fought.